Tesla absolutely has popularized this. It's not necessarily the case that they're the first and only, and that's really the sort of big takeaway that you get from today's big take is that they really went in this direction. The customer wasn't really asking for it. I think there's a great quote in the story about this idea that everybody knew how to operate doors before this, and now it is very confusing. We've sort of complicated the an aspect that didn't need to be complicated. But I think what's really sort of telling in today's story is just the degree of complaints just in the last couple of years that we've seen, not only from Tesla consumers, but from all the manufacturers that have sort of copied Tesla's approach to these door designs, where rather than just a sort of more simple latch that we're all used to using from over many years, you now have this sort of complicated approach of trying to get flush handles to be usable, and also this mix of buttons and electrically powered latches from the inside.
Now, Craig, Paul and I were just talking about how it can potentially be confusing, maybe even annoying, but the nature of these complaints suggests there's something more here that could be potentially threatening to people's safety. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to put it simply, I think this is particularly concerning if you're in an electric vehicle, one, and two, if that electric vehicle has just crashed, right? Because you're sitting on top of a great big high voltage battery, and while it is not necessarily the case that electric vehicles are catching fire left and right, if you are in a crash, in a serious collision, there is a risk of fire. And if your low voltage battery that powers your doors has gone out, and you don't have power to your car and are not familiar with how to get out, it can be really dangerous. And that has been something that we've been focused on for months now, is better understanding how people in Teslas in particular have been unable to get out of their vehicle after a crash. And in some cases, there have been fatalities. In other cases, there have been really harrowing stories of people who have just barely survived these incidents.
What has been the response of some of these auto manufacturers?
It's interesting because Tesla's a very sort of adversarial company with the press. I think in the case of this story, we spoke with Robin Denholm, the chair of the company, when a few weeks back in the lead up to this vote on Elon Musk's pay package, and she sort of acknowledged the reporting that Bloomberg has done on this topic, and talked about ways in which engineers at the company are trying to make their doors more intuitive and just safer to use. And so I do think that we can expect to see some changes at Tesla. We've already seen a change at Ford that's been related to a recall in the US. And this has become a global story where China is looking at potentially banning flush door handles, and Europe is taking a closer look at this issue as well.
So, Greg, how quickly can we expect regulators to respond to these concerns?
Yeah, I think in the case of NHTSA, you saw, shortly after our initial story on this topic, it just happened to coincide with NHTSA opening a defect investigation into Tesla Model Ys, and in the weeks since that took place, we've seen sort of some correspondence between the agency and Tesla that may suggest that that defect investigation could expand beyond just the Model Y and a select few model years of that vehicle. But in China, I think it's a particularly interesting story where the ban, potential ban that I mentioned, is something where the regulator in China solicited feedback from manufacturers, and we do expect to hear in the relatively near future that that policy is moving ahead, and that in the next couple of years you will no longer be able to make your vehicle doors in this way that has been criticized, in part because a major Tesla competitor, Xiaomi, has had two very high-profile fatal incidents involving these doors.